So I wanted to take some time out to talk about the R. Kelly trial. Specifically, I want to talk about the red herring known as Azriel Clary. Now, a red herring is something that misleads you or distracts you from the relevant or important issue at hand. And in this case, Azriel Clary, in my personal opinion, is the red herring in the R. Kelly case. And I'm gonna tell you why she's red herring. The reason I say this is because first off, her being a witness in this case makes absolutely no sense. How do you go from being a man's girlfriend, visiting him in prison, calling him in prison, being in his apartment or sharing an apartment with him? Now, people will say that the apartment was in her name, so therefore she had a right to be there. I'm not questioning that. You're in the place where you were once living with R. Kelly, and although the apartment may have been in your name, when I'm talking about the Trump Towers, although the apartment may have been in your name, it's still a space where you and R. Kelly shared, and most of his belongings or some of his belongings is still in that place. And for all intents and purposes, this would have been the place that he would have come back to had he been released. So how do you get from that point to becoming a witness against him? And none of this makes any sense. Now, apparently there was some type of fiasco about his visiting list. I made several videos about this. If you go to my YouTube page and you look at the videos where I talked about Azriel Clary as it relates to R. Kelly, you'll see that Azriel ended up getting into some type of argument, or she ended up making some type of ridiculous request, whereas she started off being the main visitor or the only visitor on his visitors list in the federal corrections facility in Illinois. And the plan was to swap her out at some point in time with Jocelyn. And from what I remember, when it comes to swap her out, she's like, well, wait, I have things to tell you, and we need to make some moves. But before we do anything, I need you to keep me on the visitors list. And when he refuses to do it, she flips. Now she's a witness. Now she's going to testify against him. None of this makes any sense. And because of the sequence of events, and because of what a lot of bloggers have been saying, and what a lot of people who've come to my channel have been saying, she's not credible. Anything she says is going to be taken as complete nonsense in court. It's going to be taken as complete garbage. So what's the purpose of actually having her in the case? What's the purpose? Now, my theory is that she's strictly there as a distraction. She's strictly there to try to trick the prosecution to come up with some type of strategy to deal with her. And I think it's tricky because she could be a red herring and she may not be. I think she is, but you obviously don't want to make the mistake of not having anything prepared in the way of questions when she gets on the stand, if she gets on the stand. But I don't think she'll get on the stand. I think she was just a trap, a honeypot, if you will. So she's extremely active on social media, and she even has a YouTube channel. And on that YouTube channel, she talks about how she was abused by R. Kelly. But if you listen to what she's alleging is abuse, you'll come to find that it's not actually abuse. She's actually just piggybacking on all the other allegations against R. Kelly. And it just really doesn't make any sense. I personally think she's a red herring. I've also made videos and I spoke about how she was a trap for some of the R. Kelly supporters. And I actually warned a lot of people, hey, look, if you go to her page, I don't think there's anything wrong with going to her page, but if you go to her page, be very careful of what you say because prosecutors are looking, or they were looking, right? I think they got all the people that they possibly could in this. She was bait. She was either red herring or bait, right? So they baited the supporters. They baited the R. Kelly supporters, and a lot of people fell for it. So I think that was the purpose of having her in the case and the purpose of having her as a witness. Because if you think about it, if under any normal circumstances, if any other lawyer was defending or trying to sue R. Kelly in court, and then Azriel comes along and she wants to be a witness to help in that case, they would just simply say no because nothing she said or has done is credible. The way she's carried herself makes her look not credible in court. Now, I'm not assassinating her character. At least I'm not trying to. I'm just simply saying that nothing she's done and nothing she's said is going to make her look credible in court. But I think it was a brilliant plan by the prosecutors because she was also bait, and a lot of people fell for that bait. A lot of people fell for that bait. Now, we don't know whether or not, the guy who allegedly burned up her car, we don't know if that guy, I think, what's his name, Wilson something, we don't know if he had strong ties with R. Kelly. We don't know if Richard Arline Jr. has strong ties to R. Kelly, or at least I don't. I did some research. I couldn't find anything that showed that he has strong ties. It's one thing to know of a person, and it's one thing to say, to talk to a person, to have conversation with the person, but it's another thing for a person to actually know you and to be able to say, yeah, this is one of the guys I run with, or this is one of the people that I'm cool with. We hang out and we kick it on a regular basis and we have ties. Those are totally two different things, right? So to me it just seems like a lot of these accusers, or a lot of people who've been accused of intimidating Azriel are just people who probably knew of R. Kelly, or people who may have met R. Kelly at some point or another, but they're not really a part of his circle. That's just my own personal opinion. If you know differently, leave your questions and comments below. But when you go to the alleged victims' pages and you start leaving threats and you start, trying to intimidate them, this is material that the prosecutors are simply going to use, have already used. No sense of me talking in future tense. They've already used a lot of comments thrown at the witnesses to try to substantiate their RICO charge. So we just know that we found out recently, a couple of days ago, that one of the guys actually pled guilty for trying to, Richard Arline Jr., pled guilty to trying to bribe Azriel Clary. That's going to be something that they're going to try to leverage in the RICO charge. And like I said, it's just going to be fairly simple. I believe they're going to try to get Richard Arline Jr. to try to say that he got direction from R. Kelly. That's my own opinion. I have no evidence to back that up, but I'm just I'm just deducing that that's going to be their strategy, because if they can put him on the stand when it's time to pursue the RICO charge, they're going to put him on the stand and they're going to say, well, hey, look, we know that you recently pled guilty to trying to bribe Azriel. Were you in communication with R. Kelly? And people lie. People lie. So while everyone else knows that R. Kelly is being monitored, he can't make a phone call without somebody knowing, and he can't have a visitor without somebody knowing. I have no doubt in my mind that Richard Arline Jr. probably for his plea deal, if he has one, and again, I'm not alleging that he has one, I'm deducing that he has one. For his plea deal, he's probably going to say, well, yeah, I spoke to someone who was in contact with R. Kelly, and he told me to do this, right? I guarantee you he's going to say something like that. At least that's my opinion, right? So in my opinion, Azriel was nothing more than bait. She was nothing more than a red herring. So we spoke about the bait portion of it. And like I said, they caught a lot of people with that bait. I think they caught, Richard Arline Jr. They caught, the guy who blew up the car, right? And again, we don't know if, the guy who's accused of blowing up the car is actually guilty, but, allegedly they got him. And then the other victory that they got from this, which people may not be paying attention to, is the fact that they're going to take all those text messages that she may have received. They're going to take her Twitter account and they're going to take her Instagram account, and then they're going to scan those accounts for anything that can be construed of as a threat. And they're going to go in and they're going to try to substantiate a RICO charge. So she was bait, and I think the prosecutors were successful in baiting her out, as to say, or they were successful in using her as bait. The only question now is, will they be successful with using her as a distraction? Because I don't think she's actually going to testify. I think right now they're just trying to use her to get the R. Kelly defense team to spin their wheels, waste their time trying to come up with a strategy on how they're going to deal with her when it's time to put her on the stand, except she's never actually going to be put on the stand. She's never actually going to see the stand. No lawyer in their right mind would put her on the stand because she's not credible. So that's it for this video. Leave your questions and comments below. Let me know what you think. Do you think Azriel Clary is credible? Do you think she was a successful red herring? Do you think she was successful as bait? Or let me rephrase that. Let me see if I can rephrase that. Do you think the prosecutors were successful as using her as a red herring? Do you think the prosecutors were successful at using her as bait? Let me know what you think. Leave your questions and comments below. Like, share, and subscribe.